Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Align, Shine, Prosper with your host, Doreen Agostino. As a New Age 2012 advances, we offer leading-edge awareness to unravel the mystery and adventure in front of us. And now, for fresh perspectives and to advance the fullness of what is possible, here's Doreen Agostino.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Align, Shine, Prosper Internet Radio on this 8th day of August 2012. I am Doreen Agostino, broadcasting live from Newmarket, Ontario, Canada. Thank you for listening to our show, and please welcome our distinguished guest this week, Dr. Carol Sue Rosin. Welcome, Carol, and how are you this evening?
Thank you. It's just wonderful to be on your show, Doreen, to have you who understands, who really got what this treaty, the story is about, and the importance of it with a spiritual base, because that really is what this is about. And I'm just so glad to be with you and the listeners. Thanks, everybody, for coming on.
I'm going to tell our listeners that out of a 3-page bio that just is got so many accomplishments that you have done in this lifetime, Carol, just let me say this. Dr. Carol Rosin, co-author of the Outer Space Security and Development Treaty 2012, with other distinguished individuals, leads and manages special space development and exploration projects, including this milestone treaty signing to ban all space-based weapons and transform the war industry into a space and other industries. I just have to take a little bit of water here, just a sec. Thank you. So Dr. Rosin founded the Institute for Security and Cooperation in Outer Space, is World Peace Ambassador for the International Association of Educators for World Peace, a consultant to the Treaty Project, which is Peace and Emergency Action Coalition for Earth. Dr. Rosin was the first woman executive in an aerospace company, Fairchild Industries, was spokesperson for rocket scientist Dr. Werner von Braun, a disclosure project witness at the National Press Club 2001, and initiated the first USSR USA military-to-military meeting. You can learn more about Dr. Rosin and the work that she's doing right now at peaceinspace.com and also at peace-treaty.com. So, Carol, despite losing all your worldly possessions, being attacked and physically and seriously injured, starting all over again with little or next to nothing because of the work you do, here you are as strong as ever, working with a group of very distinguished men to prevent weaponization of space and to preserve Earth, us, and all life here. So I just want to say how much I appreciate you, and I would like to acknowledge your contributions to all life on this planet and to thank you for staying the course, in addition to thanking you for being with us on our show tonight.
Thank you so much. I know so many people who are listening, I'm sure, have been through an awful lot too, especially truth tellers, people who wake up like you, Doreen, and thank goodness, you really got this, because you're a gift from the gods to help get this moving now. We're at a new phase of this work. We have one chance in history to change everything and to get out of the messes that we're in right now. And some of us who have worked inside what some call the belly of the beast, the military-industrial complex, that decision now to move forward either will take place or it won't, in terms of catastrophic events continuing, more suffering and destruction, or the opening up of a whole new vision, a whole new way, and that's not rhetoric. And that's what this treaty is about. It's about really how to change everything. So anything that any of us have gone through now, I'd like to help us switch out of the negative context that, we're all looking at all the problems that I could list and take a whole hour to go through, that too many of us know are going on, and we're experiencing them ourselves in our own lives for sure. My husband's writing a book, the working title of which is If You're Not Depressed, You Ought to Be in Therapy. I mean, that's kind of how it is at the moment. But there's a lot of good research, good technology, good people, and I want to share a whole piece of this vision with everybody today, thanks to you. And we've been through enough lies and belief systems based on lies, a lot of dumbing down from the educational systems and the media, and this kind of narcissistic approach, especially in the country I'm living in, the U.S., where we think we're number one and better than everybody. And you see, I think since 9/11, I just heard the other day that there have been 61 major shootings, like the ones we've heard about, 2 in Colorado just in the last few weeks. It's days in one of them. So it's time now to take a huge leap, a huge step. And while we're talking about banning space-based weapons, I'm going to explain today why that is so vitally important, and that it's time now to just stop compromising. We know about the corruption, the conspiracy theories. We've been uncovering cover-ups and blaming everybody, and we have all kinds of stories about who's evil and who isn't. And I've just moved out of that. I helped start a movement with about 50 million people, I'm told, back in the early 80s, having come out of the industry. But that protest approach, the complaints, they're based on some realities, but there is a dual perspective here, and we all know it, and there are enormous benefits and opportunities from what I'm talking about here, this treaty. And the treaty really is a story. It's a new platform that if somebody listening could get this into the hands of the candidates that we think might grasp onto this because they're looking for a new security system, a new economic system, a new way to solve huge problems, including jobs and training programs and how technology gets applied. This is the shift and the transition time that people are talking about, but this one issue has been left out of the dinner conversations, off the platforms, and there's good reason for it. There's secrets that are, we've been living under a canopy of lies and behind a veil of secrets for just way too long. And we have now got some systems that have been opening up the truth. And with a sense of urgency, I'm on your show because of your spiritual awareness, Doreen, because, like I said, this is not a technology. It's not about economics. It's not a security system that we're talking about, even though that's the description that I'll go into a bit. It's really about a frequency, a consciousness, a place from the heart that this ban on space-based weapons comes, but it's also technologically, politically, socially, environmentally, health-wise feasible to transform that whole war mindset now. And we only have a very short window of time in which we can get this done. So anywhere that you'd like to jump in and ask questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them. And I'll be available to talk to anyone on my email, spacetreaty@gmail.com, and that website you mentioned, peaceandspace.com or peace-treaty.com, will lead people to me and to the people I'm working with. So thank you again for having me on. That's a quick my introduction, and I just so appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. I just wanted to take another minute, and I was going to ask everyone who's listening live or with us now and to a recording of our show to focus in our heart center, located mid-upper chest, and to just take a deep breath in right now, a long, deep, slow breath. And on the exhale, I'm going to ask people who are willing to choose peace within yourself and on the outer. And as we gather now, intentionally, we put our intention together. I'd ask that you surround the Outer Space Security and Development Treaty with gratitude and love, and intentionally shield it with the highest vibration of light possible so that all may be set free and with most ease. So it is and remains. I give thanks for this or something even greater. So I just have a very few upfront announcements. I wanted to let my listeners know I renewed this Line Shine Prosper Internet radio contract for another year. My plan is to host twice a month or as guided. I ask my listeners to visit my website, freetobewealthy.net. I draw attention to the link up page with links to uncensored news, to evolutionary free movies to learn more about what you truly are, and you can download a free Inner Wealth Emergence Kit and Self-Realize Guide, and be sure to check out my mini-book, So You Think You're Awake, because it's time for our body, mind, and spirit to awaken as one. And to preserve natural systems, please visit my other website, earthfriendtotes.com, and check out the links page under 2012 is like no other, because you'll probably be surprised. So thanks, Carol, for waiting. I'm going to start some questions. In the 70s, as a sixth grade school teacher, you met the Wernher von Braun, the rocket scientist. So I'm going to ask you, how did this come about, what followed, and what did you learn from him?
Well, Von Braun is one of these truth tellers who, of course, got a bad rap in a way. He was called a Nazi. In fact, I was called a Nazi or a Nazi lover for even having worked with him. So I learned what that name calling and that hate energy is about. He's one of the most famous visionaries of what can be done in outer space and with space technology. So it was an amazing experience to meet him, knowing all of that and what people thought of him. And I'm not usually at a loss for words, you might have noticed, but I couldn't talk when I met him. I could only think Nazi German. And then he started explaining to me that I'm a sixth grade school teacher at the time. I had written a Spaceship Earth teaching unit where my sixth graders who were in a very low socioeconomic area, predominantly what we now call Afro-American, Black, whatever, students that were really poor and in a flood area where every time it rained, we had to carry our children in our classrooms up to the higher ground. It was just a sad situation. And I was invited up to the industry because my students set up a classroom, and I'm writing this unit up right now for teachers, by the way, and we pretended we were living and working in outer space. And it hit the press, students studying on Spaceship Earth. It just failed to say that it was a classroom. So apparently teachers were writing in and calling Fairchild Industries, which was up the road. At that time, I was in Virginia. This was in Germantown, Maryland, where the company was. And they were saying, could they be pen pals with our classroom, or could they be launched into space? It was just kind of a fluke. It was amazing. So I was invited up to Fairchild. It turned out they were looking for a woman to be pushed up to corporate industry, and I had legs and short skirts in those days. So I was being asked to come on and work in the industry. But what happened was, as a gift to try to talk me into it, they brought me in to the office of now the late Dr. Wernher von Braun, who we know is the father of rocketry in this country, in the U.S., and it was amazing. I had a 10-minute meeting that lasted for almost 3 hours, and he said to me, Carol, you will keep weapons out of space. And he explained to me how he and the German scientists had escaped from working under Hitler and how they knew that technology could be applied for exploring the universes and finding out who we really are in these bodies and these man-made boundaries on this planet and the universes. He used to say, in that time, it was ahead of his time because we only realized much later that we could say universe with an S on it. And he said that he was going to teach me everything there was to know about this space program and issue and who was who, and that what I was teaching in my classroom that was set up like a space habitat. When you walked in the door, you were decontaminated at the door with a hairdryer because you were a UFO or an entity from some other place other than our spacecraft and station that we lived and worked in. And he said, there's a reality to this, and there's going to be a choice, a moment in time when the decision would be made, either to continue, escalate this war mentality and the war game that, of course, these German scientists experienced to the ultimate in their job descriptions, making V2s and bombs and then coming to the States or to Russia, where once again they were called into these different weapons-oriented programs until they got involved in the U.S. with satellites and going to the moon, which von Braun then became the head of that moon program, one of the head scientists of it. So I really had a huge experience meeting him because this was also the time when we were setting up at Fairchild Industries a satellite experiment, an educational satellite called the HS-6, the Application Technology Satellite, the sixth biggest most satellite in existence at that time. So being an educator, they immediately put me into that room with the people planning what satellites could do to benefit the Earth. So with von Braun, we created a youth program that was called It's Your Turn. It's your turn to explore, discover. It was for minorities, women, and for everyone of youth to start looking at what jobs exist of a non-weapons nature, military, civilian included, in space that benefit Earth. Of course, the jobs then were mostly on Earth and still are. And I got a chance to help set up almost over 20 countries, almost 24 countries in two-way audio-visual satellite experiments, 5,000 ground stations in India, in educational programs. It was amazing. And, of course, if you can run a classroom with 37 children in it, these projects were exciting and wonderful to me. I could just lay them all out like I would have a lesson plan, and I did. So I kept getting promoted until I was a corporate manager. And then in 77, after he had really taken me in, he helped me become vice president of the third largest chamber of commerce in the country. I didn't even know what a chamber of commerce was back in 1974 to 70 when I was there. And he helped me get into these different positions where I would get exposed to the corporate mindset, the military mindset, the old paradigm. But what he said was, and he taught me that there are just a whole lot of really good people in these fields, and protesting them was not going to change the game. And we'd have to somehow find a way to present the vision. And he thought it was funny that a woman would be able to help present his vision. He told me very clearly, in fact, he was scribbling the word humor on a piece of paper as he told me about his cancer that he was dying with, and told me that I should keep my sense of humor because it was going to get so serious at some point, and now I know what he was talking about years later. But he said that there are wonderful people in these places, and we need to find them, and that's what you're helping me do, and everybody on the air will too, because we all know people in the military-industrial complex, and these people have vision too, and we have to help them and give them a vision. But the step for getting to the new shift, to the transition, he taught me was missing, and that is the ban of space-based weapons, because at this time in history, that's what can be done. We can't stop nukes, obviously. In fact, as long as we're going into space, and we just did with Mars with nuclear propulsion, nuclear energy is still existing on this planet. So we know, a lot of us in the industry, the scientists know, and people know intuitively, that there's another energy that can be used, especially as it relates to we call the cosmos cultures in this treaty. And I learned all of the basic foundation from him, and just meeting him as a sixth grade school teacher and a child psychologist, and then moving into the aerospace defense world was a huge leap for me. And being able to share that now with people and explain that there is a way out of the mess that we see happening all over the world. This is what he was about, the vision.
So, Carol, why this plan to weaponize space? Why do they want to do that, and what's the plan?
It's part of the old war game, which has always been about seizing the high ground. As I learned to become a bit of a military strategist, I learned that war games are really going to take place to the benefit of the warriors if they can get to a higher point. And in our lifetime, it just happens to be outer space, which is dreadful, because you can see we can't picket and protest in space. Not that protests are working. I think we're all starting to realize that now, that we need to do something a whole new way. But it's always been about dominating and controlling. And that's what that industry is about in one way. It's also got some prongs to that, the greed and the money. And that's always a part of it too. But again, there's a good part of this that I'm going to tell you about in just a minute. And it's about fear. There's a huge tactic, and we see it all the time on the news. It's mostly negative news, or talking giggly heads on the news at prime time now. Prime time's become almost a tabloid on some of these channels. I only watch for news Democracy Now! I watch Link TV, which you can get on satellite TV, or you can get it on your computer, linktv.org, or I watch Free Speech TV. Those are actual channels that have documentaries, and Al Jazeera News, Mosaic News, and as I said, Democracy Now! Shows like that are digging for real truths and real visuals of what's going on, which can be pretty painful to experience on the news, but then you find out what's happening. And that other part of the media, of our educational system, has been based on somebody who's different from us, has to be evil, coming to get us, they're jealous of us, they want something from us, they want to control us. We're taught these fear tactics. I mean, it's hard for people now to even believe that extraterrestrial beings could possibly be peaceful, even though they've been alive for thousands of years, probably, or hundreds at least, and come great distances, and we're still here. That's another whole story. But the game itself is about, you have to identify enemies. If people want to hear the Von Braun strategy to that, they can go to YouTube and look up Carol Rosin. You'll see the Disclosure Project testimony that I did. That Dr. Stephen Greer organized, the Disclosure Project that I was a witness in. And in that, I explained that the formulas for identifying enemies, and Von Braun was right about the warning he gave us, right up to the point that now we see terrorism and we see all kinds of enemies being identified and wars against whom we have to fight with these now space-oriented weapons, starting with drones. I mean, drones is just a little piece of that war game, that now they can spy and see everybody and everything. And imagine them putting in geosynchronous orbit just 3 of these mind control weapons or spy weapons that turn into what they call force multipliers that make it possible to aim weapons more accurately, which is what's happening now with the drones. But then imagine that we could also use these drones and the cameras on them to see where the sick waters are, to clean up the environment, to see where people have migrated that are starving or that need water. And we can see them now with these cameras that are on there. And by the way, the drones can be huge, or they can be the size of insects or hummingbirds. In fact, they have those shapes. They're amazing, these drones. And they can be sent in anywhere in the world. They are. And the United States is now going to be selling them around the world. And if the country is a, quote, enemy or not an ally, however you look at that, those countries are starting to even build their own drones. But there are going to be thousands of those. And I talked about that 35 or 40 years ago, but I have always been slightly ahead of my time, having coming out of that industry. And it's very hard for people to hear it. Well, now they see it. And where we are now in the war game is seizing the high ground of outer space to dominate and control the world. There are people controlling that game that are Armageddonites or have some other religious belief system where they think they're going to survive somehow. It's a little bit past the 72 virgin idea. You know, you're going to sacrifice yourself and you'll find virgins when you're out of your body. I mean, there are all kinds of belief systems out there that we've been just carefully taught, and I have high respect for them because there are millions of people believing these belief systems that perpetuate this war game, and so that's another element of it. So it's about domination control. It's about the fear mechanism that has to go with that and the identification of one enemy after another. It's about the money that's being made, the contracts from it, from this whole war game. And it's about these belief systems that we've been carefully taught that are based on, as Von Braun said, lies. And what's happening now, thanks to you and other people, is we're waking up and we don't want those lies anymore. And so a lot of people are still focused on the conspiracy theories. The truth gets twisted up in here. Should we protest the military? No. Should we protest industries? No, they're not going to disappear. So we have to come up with a new vision, a new way of working this, and that's what that treaty is about. It addresses just this very question: why are we putting space-based weapons up there? And I just went over that. Now, what do we do to get out of that so that we don't keep draining our energy and our focus on the weapons themselves? Because if you keep focusing on the problem at the level of the problem, then you're not going to get anything to actually cause second-order change, which is real change. First-order change, we're just putting blankets on or our air conditioners. But second-order change is we're actually going to change the whole game. That's what this treaty is about. That is so exciting. And we have a very little bit of time. We have a way to get out of it, to get it signed, to get out of the old way, some people call the old paradigm, and into the new way. And we need to get educated about what's in space, about what's possible. For many people, I think that issue of what's in space is so far out that they haven't related to it. I probably wouldn't. I don't even like to fly in airplanes. But whatever issue you're involved in, my issue's the orphans. There are 500 million orphans on the planet now, and from probably more than that. That's an old UN statistic. And the animals species and plant species are disappearing, and we're torturing, we're suffering. There are terrible things going on as part of that war game. and then the contractors go in and try to clean it up or create another technology, but that's still in that old frequency. And what this treaty does is it taps people. My experience now is we started writing this within the last couple of years, and in the last few weeks we've said, okay, this war game cannot continue. The way we've been dealing with it on any level cannot. So we're willing to get on a plane, take it to the leaders. I can talk about that more later, and get the treaty signed into law that will ban these space-based weapons verifiably and enforceably and change the game without threatening or dislocating jobs, in fact, with creating more, because part of the war game, finally, to answer your question, is about creating jobs as well. And it's not doing a very good job of it, as you see. The war game is a very limited industry, and it sends people into these wars and into the money grid that's rather negatively based. We consider heroes coming back in body bags or without limbs, and we've destroyed whole families and whole communities and individuals and children, and it's so toxic and polluting in both the energy itself and in the technology itself that's creating it, and the people that control that technology. And now it can even be done from distances. You don't even have to be on a drone. You can just control it from a computer and inevitably from a mind. That's another whole psychotronic field. So the war game is about creating all of that, including the jobs, very limited. And we're now talking about changing the game so that we will put a lid on the war game, on the war industry. And I'm getting a lot of support from the people in the military. I just spoke to someone yesterday about, we saw tanks. Some people did a YouTube and they saw tanks going up the West Coast, and what were the tanks about? So I called the military. And they said, look, we've been doing that for years. It's part of the training program. We put these tanks in different training areas. It's the war game. And it's nothing new except that they did it during the daylight instead of at night like they usually do. So people saw these tanks on these railroad trains. And it was very scary because we hear what could happen with the domination and control game. But to focus on that, again, is not going to get us out of this mess. So seizing the high ground, the final place in the answer to your long answer to your question, is what now it's about, outer space, because they can dominate and control the whole Earth from 3 spots in geosynchronous orbit, which is where the technology stays in the same place as the Earth rotates. And how horrible that would be. And the drones are just a little teeny piece of it on its way up. So we have a little teeny bit of time now, and that's it, because they're getting ready to escalate this war mentality, the extension of which is technology, and it is weapons, more horrific than anything we've ever experienced before, not to mention the drain on the money, the budgets, and on our lives, and on our hearts and souls that's happening right now. That's kind of a result of it. Well, we have another vision, another result. We can end war, and now the vision is to have the headline say war is over, and that's what this will result in.
Beautiful. Okay, so you're working with a very distinguished team, and I'm wondering if you could just briefly tell us who they are.
Yes, and I will do it briefly because they're biographies, a brief version, but extensive and powerful biographies, because their experiences in the revolving door game, we call it, of the complex is so extensive that I am so excited that these men were willing to co-author this treaty. Because of their backgrounds, it gives it credibility. It gives the whole issue that I'll tell you about in the treaty itself, which is, again, is a story. And they are, starting with Dr. Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut, I think some of your listeners will know, Apollo astronaut, 6th man on the moon, and founder of the Institute of Noetic Sciences, which is the advanced studies of the brain and the mind. He had an out-of-body experience in space, some of you may know, and couldn't explain it when he got back. So he founded the Institute of Noetic Sciences to study consciousness and the brain and mind, and he is just extraordinary. We've written a book together that I hope I'll have time to update pretty shortly. He's just, all these men are extraordinary. Commander Will Miller, retired, of course, Navy, was a Vietnam combat veteran and an advisor to the Department of Defense, U.S. Space Command, the White House staff. He's also been an advisor to people who have worked on the UFO issue. And so he's a rather quiet advisor on these issues, but has been amazing in co-authoring this treaty too. Abe Krieger, an aerospace executive who was 37 years at Boeing, and he put together the International Space and Missile Development Program. He was a big star at Boeing as an executive. He's a senior structural engineer on the Lunar Orbiter, and he helped put together the U.S.-Russian space station project, the International Space Station. So he's a huge asset in all of this. He's a strategic planner, and of course, when we go to the Russian leader, he will hopefully be able to go with us. Also, Paul Hellyer. He is the Honorable former Minister of Defense of Canada. He's worked on a lot of different issues related to the Canadian Forces. He's written a couple of books. He's an economic expert as well, alternative economics, and he is, I'd say, the most outspoken international dignitary on the UFO issue. He's even worked in your country of Canada, as you may know, to help set up a platform, a base for UFOs to land. And I know people who don't know about the UFO issue, as I mention these names, please keep in mind that these are no slouches, these men, and they are hugely credentialed and huge-hearted to be willing and courageous enough to do this. And Paul Hellyer, is one of the most extraordinary international men on the planet, dignitaries, because I think of his courageousness in going public. He says he's never seen a UFO craft, but he has worked with very credible people that he trusts and knows. And so he has stood up for this issue and, of course, in support of this treaty. And finally, Dr. Scott Jones, another retired commander, Navy retired, who has worked in the intelligence community high level. And he worked as a senior advisor to Senator Claiborne Pell, which is where I met him in our country. Claiborne Pell was one of the most far-out, intelligent, intuitive, curious senators, and I've met hundreds of congressmen and senators, and I've testified before the House and Senate. He was the first one who invited me to testify. In fact, the first woman to testify at the Senate Armed Services Committee on this issue years ago, Senator Claiborne Pell. And Dr. Jones was his chief advisor on a lot of issues that he studied, from life after life to various elements of spiritual awareness, and just an amazingly far-out person who went in the Senate looking into remote viewing, to some issues that some people in those days said was just crackpot stuff, and now, of course, we know it's true. Werner von Braun transmitted my first speech to me without a telephone from the East Coast to me in Chicago, and my first audience was 18,000 people, educators, and he couldn't go, and it was about a live demonstration. He was too ill to attend, so he put me on a plane, and I went in his place, and I was petrified. The only other speech I had ever given in my life was to a PTA, a Parent Teachers Association meeting about mustard being squirted in the cafeteria, and I rehearsed that the night before in the mirror. I was so nervous. But he transmitted this speech to me, and these were the kinds of things that Senator Claiborne Pell, who's now deceased, he, as with Scott Jones, would send Scott Jones in to study some of these far-out issues. And Scott is, Dr. Jones, the man who founded the Peace and Emergency Action Coalition for Earth, the acronym of which is Peace, Inc., Peace and Emergency Action Coalition for Earth. And this treaty is a treaty project of Peace, Inc., thanks to Scott Jones, who founded this 501c3 in this country. We can use it as a tax deduction when people make donations. And by the way, thanks to all the people who are making donations. This is going to help us get on the road to get this treaty signed, which we'll talk about. So these are the people who I called, and I had two parts of me, I have to say. That one was, I didn't really want to do this because of the things you mentioned. This is a really hard road right now for truth tellers, as you know, especially in this field where it can change the whole game. And I've just been called every kind. I mean, I'm a CIA agent, a Nazi, a KGB agent, an agent of the military. I sell real estate. I have all kinds, and I'm ripping people off. I've never sold real estate, by the way. But there are all kinds of things that people do to discredit you, and if you don't shut up, they work on taking things away from you. Sometimes they then do worse things, with an attack or worse. We hear about these things all the time. I mean, look at poor Assange stuck in an embassy. They're just people who are trying to release the truth. It's very hard. And so to me, these men that co-authored this treaty are so courageous, because when I called them, I said to all of them, there's a part of me that just wants to quit now. I want to quit. I don't want to do this work anymore. I've done it for almost 40 years, day and night. And my husband of, almost 27 years. I mean, it's not like we've taken a vacation. This is really hard work. And they all said, this is it. It's now or never. We're doing it. We're with you. I got a note from Ed Mitchell this morning, and he said just that. We're with you all the way. And it just made me cry. It's so inspiring, and you are too, and people who listen and who help us now, who will help us, I hope, because we're going to get this done. We have to, or it's going to be more of the same and worse. So that's why these men came on. They all know pieces of this issue. They're willing to tell the truth. Edgar Mitchell was my advisor 35 years ago, and in those days we would say, don't ever talk about UFOs. So I very stupidly didn't hire anyone in the institute that I founded because I thought I would look like a crackpot. And now listen to both of us. He was born in Roswell, so he knows a lot too. But all of us have learned that it's time to not only expose the truth, that's one thing, but to me, that's nothing. If people don't come with us like you have and contribute everything you've got like we're doing and make it possible to get this treaty signed, that will change everything. And these men co-authored the treaty. They used the previous treaties that now are either obsolete or dead completely, current treaties that are relevant to this issue of banning space-based weapons. There are a lot of different kinds of treaties out there, none of which are actually going to work unless we get a ban on space-based weapons. And they also used the proposed treaties like the one of the Russians and Chinese, who put it through the United Nations the typical way, and of course now it's stuck. So we found a way to go around the bureaucracy, not only to write this treaty, but to go around the bureaucracy. We found a path to getting it signed into law as quickly as we can get on the road and meet with the 9 leaders that are required by the way this treaty's written to get this ban on space-based weapons. I mean, these men are amazing. And they not only used the old treaty, but they added in some new elements to the treaty, the acknowledgement of indigenous cultures and cosmos cultures, as we're calling them in the treaty, and they're parties to the treaty. Of course, they can't sign a treaty. Signatories, the UN member nation heads of state, are the ones who are the signatories who sign and get the treaty ratified in their parliament or Congress, whatever they have in their countries. So we really have worked hard on this, and we've worked with lawyers. We have a lawyer, Tamsin Williams, in the UK, and her mother's an international lawyer as well. And we've worked, had this gone over with fine-tooth combs, and it's not very different from the previous and proposed treaties, except that we've added in some new elements, took out anything that could be controversial or cause debate, because a lot of treaties, as you see, put words or language in it that can be debated, and that stalls things like treaties and laws from getting developed, or they get compromised. Well, this one is not going to get compromised. It's finished. And we'll always hear people that don't want to support it. If they don't, I think I'd have to rip them out of my Rolodex at this point, because there's some reason that's got a self-interest or a hate or a doubt motive in it, and that's not the energy of this treaty. This is so positive that when people read it, and because I think it came from these men who have worked, as you see, in the industries, in the militaries, in labs, in universities, and in the whole game, it's written in a very high frequency. And that frequency, from my experience of these men, that I just feel I get chills when I say it to you, so lucky to have worked with to put this together, because they're all seniors, and they really put their full energy into it with their experiences. It taps people who either are functioning in a higher frequency, who have just said, that's it, forget it, I am so sick of everything that's going on, I'm so depressed, I'm apathetic, I can't function anymore, or I've been working on these issues for how many decades and it hasn't changed, things are getting worse all the time, and unless you're thinking la la land, just envision everything's going to be wonderful, which is a good vision, but it has to take action steps in the middle of it. This issue is, from what I'm hearing from people, is tapping the ones who already are in that frequency of ready to work on something, to make the change, like you, Doreen, really. And also people who can get there, who are not too stuck in something negative that's dragging them backwards or down. And I understand where people come from, by the way, that are dragged down. My husband is the most depressed person I know. He thinks that this, we're never going to solve the problems on the planet because of the human ego and the greed and the corruption and all of that. And we're saying, yeah, at the level of the earthbound issues, we're not. Obviously, it's not going to happen. Even the alternative energy projects and cleaning up of the environment, we can get little bits of money and brains applied, and people really are working on some great stuff. But to free it all up into the other frequency, that's what seems to happen with this treaty, that either people read it and they go, oh, my God, this is it. This is what needs to get done, and they get it immediately. Or they read it, they may read it again, they may even read it again, and then if they can get into that frequency, if they are capable of it or willing to, even if they are so depressed, like my husband, who is totally supportive of this. He's given his whole life to help make this happen, and everything that we own and everything that we've gone through. Times where I've had to say to him, okay, if you want a divorce, this is the time, because I can't stop now. He is so depressed, and yet he will help do this. In fact, he just wrote a one-pager. If anybody wants it, I can email it to them. That's really beautiful, about the drones and how to get out of this mess, too. It was a gift this morning before your show. That's what these men are. They're the energy that taps the people who are already there, and this treaty that they put together also taps the people who can move into that frequency. And these are the people that you and I want to get to know. You're our family. We maybe came out of the same pod somehow. I don't know what it is. It's just such a giggle to me that there are people out there like you who are now coming into this picture right at the moment where it's critical timing. And including these men, now we have the treaty, we're ready to get on the road. I wanted to needle point something that says, have treaty, will travel. We're ready. Awesome. And I believe that because of the credentials of these men, we're not going to have any problem getting into the doors of these heads of state. There's just no question about it.
Just let me ask you, because you have now, it's fresh in our minds, who the co-authors are of the treaty and what you have to deliver. And so let's talk about the money. You require a certain number of dollars in order to pay for this treaty to be implemented. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what that money is going to be used for? And I'm really, really asking people, I did a blog this week and I said, even if you only have a little bit of money, a lot of people donating little amounts of money will add up. And this money needs to come now. I'm in touch with what's happening in, behind the screen, the Wizard of Oz, what's really going on, and the police state that's escalating, and, the lies that are being, the deception that's going on right now is horrendous. So, Carol, let's talk about what that money's going to go to do so that hopefully people will open their hearts and write a check or donate on PayPal, however they can do that.
Okay, I'm going to tell you that we have not only these 5 men and the lawyer in the UK and myself. We have 2 parliamentarians. I'm not parliamentarians. We have 2 filmmakers, documentarians, who are willing to come with us now and make a film about this at no charge. I only need their travel expenses. They're seniors. They also are very professional. They've done a lot of their own documentaries. And we are going to get on a plane. We need plane tickets. These are all seniors, so I want business class tickets for them. They can't possibly go in the economic class. We need tickets, we need hotel rooms, we need food and travel money. We have little gifts made that Dr. Jones got an artist to make, and for the presidents and prime ministers and their wives or husbands. One is a little silver necklace, so we don't have to pay for these, by the way. I just want to mention them to you because we're all donating everything we can, too. And it has the peace dove on it that is on peaceroom.com, which is the website of Dr. Jones. And he also made a heavy but small, for putting in our suitcases, kind of a paperweight award for whoever signs this treaty, too, for the presidents, that has the peace signal insignia on it, but also an indigenous symbol on it. And so all we need now, bottom line, is our plane tickets, our hotel rooms, food, and driver taxis for all of us to get on a plane to go to the 9 presidents, prime ministers, kings, queens, whoever is the head of state, who is the signatory of the countries that we've selected to go and get this treaty hand-delivered. The hand-deliver reason is because if we went through the normal bureaucracy, we would not get this done on time. And that's what's happened to a lot of the weapons issues, the nuclear issue, the other dangers, including technologies that we're all aware of, becoming more and more aware of, and the results of which, from climate change to disease to malformed babies and adults, and to how we have to heal and treat everyone and clean up the environment. We know all of that part, and we know why we were in a state of reacting. We didn't have the people like these men who co-authored the treaty to get a step ahead of what's going on into the place where we can actually get something accomplished. And that's why we're going to hand-deliver the treaty to these heads of state and film them so that we can show it to everyone who are contributors to start. And we'll keep up with each other. We'll be able to keep reporting back exactly what's happening. And that's what we need the money for. And we figured that...
possible.
Pardon me?
And soonest possible.
Oh, my gosh, yes. Let me tell you, I'm sitting here while I'm saying this to you. Commander Will Miller just sent me 3 articles from Popular Science. Now, you know, if it's on the cover of these magazines, they're way ahead of what is actually shown here. This had to be turned into the magazine months or years before. And this one on the top says, battlefield space, military hardware is orbiting the Earth for decades, but no weapons have ever been deployed in space. That may change soon, and it may launch a major space race. That's where we are, actually. This is an article from a little bit way back. Here's another one, the new war in space, hypersonic bombers, space mines, killer satellites, and it goes on. This is also a cover story. Here's one more. I have a stack of these. Defense 2020, the Pentagon's weapons of the future, spears from space, super-fast torpedoes, kinetic missiles, jet-based lasers. There's another one with rods from God. I mean, and I know too much about these weapons systems. That's really what I started doing back in 1982-83 when I was forming my institute, which, again, I'm not using now. I'm using the Peace and Emergency Action Coalition for Earth, Peace, Inc., that Dr. Jones founded, because it has a 501c3. And that's where people can donate right on that website. Just hit the donate button. And what we need, like you said, are small donations. And if somebody who has the money would just say, look, get on the planes, I will pay for the tickets, the hotel rooms, the food, and whatever your expenses are on this trip, and go get this treaty signed. And then the leader takes it to their Parliament or Congress, like I mentioned, and then it goes directly to the UN Secretary General's office, who is the treaty depositary. He introduces it to the Assembly, and it becomes world law. And it's a simple process. It's legal. It's outside of the usual conference committee way of working it. And we don't have to do it no matter what anybody says any other way. This will work. So that's all we need. And like you said, and I'll repeat it, if anybody can just send any amount of money, but the most you have, if you have your grandchildren and your children and you don't want to kiss them goodbye because you can see any one of a number of man-made or natural disasters that can happen because they're not getting the proper attention or money or whatever's needed to not just educate us about what's going on to the point that a lot of people are already catatonic and apathetic and paralyzed because they don't know what to do. But people listening to your show are hearing what to do. And this is the way to end the war mentality and the war game and transform it. And I have presented this to people in the U.S. Space Command, in the Congress. I have found friends, but we haven't been able to get it done in the U.S. for sure. And I'm sure anybody that follows the politics and economics of it all can figure out why. I don't even want to get into it. What we have figured out is that from the world level, and that's why I'm so happy to be talking to you in Canada and outside of the country, to the people I know are listening. I just got a note from Ireland. And they have already contributed. We have now a chance to get this done, and we're doing it. We're willing to do it. And like I said, these are all older men. We've all been through a lot, from just the little attack kind of thing that you mentioned, to the cancers, to the, eye problems, to the sicknesses, the physical things that, I'm under chemtrails here. And I really had to go get an inhaler here. I haven't done that in years. I couldn't breathe. We can't solve it at that level. It isn't going to happen. We can get some Band-Aids put on, and I also work with the homeless here. I just got fired from trying to get a job as volunteering at the animal shelter because I used to have a horse sanctuary, and I don't anymore, and I have 2 dogs. Kitty, a lady on Facebook, sent me a gift of 2 little poodles, and now I have a cat that adopted us. But I wanted to work in the animal shelter, and they said I couldn't because I cry when people don't accept the animals when they So, all of us are feeling, what can we do? How can we help? What can be done? And I'm saying this is what can be done. And again, if you'll see that we know what we're talking about.
And that's why you said this is the last card. In the video on peace-treaty.com, basically, this is I believe it is also our last opportunity as a species. We know that we're causing the next mass extinction. If you go look at those, uncensored news links on my link up page, you'll be astounded at what's really going on in the world because mainstream media doesn't tell you. And to me, this is it. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but let's talk about, I wanted to ask you, I have a lot of questions, so I want to keep moving. I wanted to ask you, do you believe in extraterrestrials?
If you had asked me this a few years ago, I would have said absolutely not. I think everyone who thinks of this is completely insane and whacked out of their skulls. And then just before the Disclosure Project, and I did not say this, fortunately, Dr. Greer didn't let any of us, at least the game plan was to not talk about any of our experiences, but I did talk privately with some people, and they had similar ones to mine. I was in a room with another man when, notice my voice is shaking. I really don't want to go public with this again, but I will, because it's the truth. I was in a room with another man, and extraterrestrial beings walked through the wall, just like in a movie, except that it wasn't Spielberg, and met with us for about an hour and a half. And it's the most extraordinary experience out of all my experiences, of course, that I've ever had, and nothing will ever top it, and I will never feel such love, and I wasn't being duped. And when people sometimes say, well, how do you know there aren't evil aliens? You just have to know we're still here, and you have to be able to think still, things like that, and you have to listen to the people who are not coming from a fear base. And I was given a lot of messages to give. I'm writing them up now. Basically, yes, of course, I know that they're here. And I saw my first craft when I was out of the country, right in front of my face, flying low, huge, and with lights going on around it. And I watched it go right past me and then shoot up faster than I could possibly even snap my fingers and show you. But, yeah, they are here. They're visiting. All those years that I was so dumbed down myself to not admit or even look at this as a reality, I am sorry for, but I am at least now willing to tell the truth, and that's it. Yes, they exist, and they're visiting people in 2s or more they told me, because there are people like me who otherwise would have thought we'd been slipped a tab of acid or something. I mean, I would never have believed that this was a reality. There wasn't someone else in the room with me who was very credible with credentials too, who freaked out, by the way, and I didn't. I went, oh my God, this is the most amazing, loving experience. And that's the love frequency of the cosmos. And that was probably the most amazing feeling and awareness that I ever had, because otherwise I would have doubted too. We hear so many lies and so many stories, and they're passed down through footnotes and books and tapes, and these people that talk about the evil reptilians and this and that. I'm going, just please delete them from my life and let me find the people who are halfway sane and balanced, that we can still see that they're not here, they're not coming to control us or steal our ovaries and resources. I mean, it's just not happening. And yes, they did some experiments years ago. They're not anymore, and they haven't for a few years. They have also evolved. They were trying to figure out why we were, some of us, peace-loving and holding the candles and the Durga light, or how come some of us are in more of a Kali energy, fighting, or even worse, killing each other or eating each other. That's not where they come from, and they couldn't, or they wouldn't be able to fly and manifest and demanifest and craft and come through walls.
Right.
And, there are people, if I'm a 60s child, so if you ever did learn how to see through a wall and raise your consciousness. Fun Brown, by the way, was best friends with Timothy Leary, and I helped launch. I actually organized the launch to happen of Timothy Leary's Ashes into Space. I took care of him in the last 6 months of his life. I was the all-night shift. And so back in the 60s, he was a friend, and I learned a lot from him about consciousness, and our brains didn't get burned out. Well, I'm not sure about mine anymore because I'm still doing this work. But anyway, these are beings from other cultures, and we're so unevolved, and they're waiting. They're not going to interfere. That's another message, and none of them are hostile. So when we evolve, and here's the biggest message of all, I have two I'm going to share with you. One is if we don't set off a nuclear bomb and we have banned space-based weapons, that is going to be the key to our proof that we have evolved enough to invite them in, and they will come in many landings. And I'm not the only person being told that. The people who can grasp that information are getting it. And also, I want to repeat the message that none of them are hostile. But I want to mention one more that Dr. Jones said that I could share with you, because we both got the same message, and he doesn't know that I got it, so I know he's telling the truth, because some of us are really in touch. And the other one is that those of us who help get this treaty signed, who help work for world peace, who are working for the good like this, we will be invited to be at the landing sites. I'm not quite sure what that means yet. I know that those who are in direct work for the treaty, and I have been told that so very clearly in that meeting and others that now I've had, that we will be invited to the landing sites. And, even your Minister of Defense, Paul Hellyer, former Minister of Defense, has been working on a landing pad in Canada for some time. Mm-hmm. There's a whole town working on this in Canada. So we have a chance now to begin to meet our neighbors, to find out who we really are in the universes. And we are a species we're curious, and we want to explore, and we're going to. Unfortunately, we did it in a very earthbound, unevolved, low consciousness way on this planet, but in space, everybody's getting along. Even the astronauts and cosmonauts who would be adversaries on the planet are getting along great. And now, I don't know how much your listeners know about space, but there have actually been 56 women have flown in space already out of the about 525 total space travelers. And you can now study, if you get the NASA channel, you can actually watch some of these spacecrafts take place. And yes, some of them are doing things that we may not like, but yes, once we get the landing, these ETs did not come here using fossil fuels. And we have so much to learn from them about how to live, how to survive, how to live in this environment and others, and not do it in the way that we are about to do it, in the old way that's based on antiquated technology that's polluting and dangerous and could obliterate the entire human species very quickly in our lifetime. It could happen in an instant. Many of us know we're on the verge of that catastrophic possibility. But with our highest consciousness, our highest awareness of the spiritual beings that we are, for lack of a better language for it, in these bodies, we have something to learn, and then we won't have to go by belief systems. We'll find out what actually is going on in the universes and how we are part of that, where we came from. So this, to me, is the most exciting time in history. And there are hundreds and hundreds of aerospace companies, and there are militaries all over the world. And like I said, they're not going to disappear. And we're only about less than 80 miles away from, or say 100 kilometers away from what's designated as space. I mean, I drive that distance every once in a while. So space tourism is going to be huge. We have envisioned this since the 60s, and I don't mean in our own tripping. We actually have had companies working on space tourism. Now they're getting ready to build space hotels, hospitals, schools, labs, farms, industries. There is already the space station, the International Space Station, with almost 20 countries of people that have been working on that, and it's really exciting stuff. And this is the ultimate adventure. It's finding out who we really are inside of ourselves, in the quiet space that you helped put us in at the very beginning of this conversation. And then we go out into touring the universes. I mean, what could be more exciting than that? The creation of new jobs, a whole new economic stimulus package that's based on the space age of our awareness, spiritually to the physical, to the emotional, to the economic and the security factors, all of them. That's what's going to change as this treaty gets signed. And it's a huge future that we have before us, with a whole new set of businesses, a whole new set of educational systems, a whole new way to apply the money and stimulate it in a different way that is no longer based on the war and that kind of secret mentality, the lie mentality. And this is a very serious moment in history. It's the one that Von Braun said, keep your sense of humor about, because either it's going to end in disaster or it's going to end in the most exciting, the song Imagine by John Lennon. That's my vision. I mean, I cannot wait to be all the positive visions on the airwaves. And
okay, so I'm going to ask you to take a breath for a second, Carol. In the chat room, there's a man by the name of Brian Simonetti or Simonettio, and he asked me to say hello to you. And there's someone else in the chat room that's asking, their name is The Refugee. If these leaders do not see that this treaty is as important as we the people know it to be, would there be a way to direct that treaty to us so that the people of the world can make it so?
Excellent question, and sadly, the answer is no. A lot of people do petitions. Now, I came out of an industry where I had a 3-ring notebook in front of me so that when people sent petitions in against the MX missile that I worked on or other technologies, there's a set of answers that can be sent out through the environmental impact statements or personal letters, or when groups or individuals come in to meet about these technologies. And that's why what we finally concluded is that we better do this on the highest levels. And it just can't be done. It is what we need from the people now is both the spiritual support, which the Bridges for Peace people have identified someone in every country now that are praying for the treaty and praying for peace. And we need that spiritual energy that is the buoyancy that's getting us into a higher level too. And we need an actual law passed, because that's what the human species goes by at the moment. And that's a transitionary step. We all know that a piece of paper doesn't mean anything, but Gary Davis has the World Government of World Citizens passport that he's got in many languages, and people are using that as an identity now who have had their identities, homes, towns destroyed and have none. So we use these pieces of paper, and we have a legal system that hasn't worked because we haven't been able to relate to it until now. Now the timing's right for us to get the world leaders to sign this treaty. That's why on the peaceandspace.com website, one of the things that people can do is get the template letter or write one from your heart and either send it to me at the email address that's on there, spacetreaty@gmail.com, or send it right to leaders so that they start to see the copy of the website, or send them the website link itself, because the treaty's there in several languages now. People are starting to send in the treaty in different languages. We were using the Google Translate, and it really wasn't very good. So people are sending it in. It's now downloadable, and they can see who wrote it, which, again, gives it the credential. And let's all get this to the world leaders. And anything you can do to do that would help. But what will really help the most, because we're willing to go in and hand deliver it. And by the way, I have a stack of letters that people have already sent that I got on the web from the website, signed by people in all kinds of different countries. And I'm going to take that stack of letters, a copy of it, to each of these leaders as we travel, so that they will get the letters hand delivered to them, or the people who have sent them on to their own presidents, prime ministers, kings, queens. Those people will get it into their office. Even if the king or queen or president didn't get it, it goes in, the energy of it goes into somebody's office. And I'm talking energy because I know that listeners on this particular show understand what I mean. So this is how the people can work. And what you really can do to help is just find somebody, get us the money, send us whatever you can. It's got to come in quickly. And I'm packed. I actually started packing yesterday, my clothes that I could fit into a little travel bag, and we're all ready to get on the plane. So that's what we have to do.
I just wanted to add, Carol, we talked about all the things in the world that aren't working. There's been so much deception. There's so many harmful things that are in our food, in the air, the water, etc. I don't want to go there. And so this brings me to Einstein again, who said that problems can't be solved at the same level of consciousness that caused them or thinking. And so I would just like to offer my perspective on the treaty. I believe this treaty is a game changer. I think this is what 2012 is all about. Some people say, oh, it's not, but I'll tell you something. There is something going on in this world that I think is unprecedented, and we don't need to call it 2012. We can call it reality. This treaty is a game changer, and here are the reasons that I suggest why. I believe this treaty is calling every person on this planet to choose divine prophecy. We've all, well, maybe not all, but a lot of people are aware of the negative prophecy that has been predicted for these end times, the revelation, etc., and I'm saying this treaty is an opportunity for each of us to choose divine prophecy. And so here's what my view of that means. It means consciously, willingly going inside your heart and choosing peace inside you and in the outer world. Heart intelligence engages the debris from the past that's coming up, all that negative stuff, we engage it. We know that we each contributed to it, that it's surfacing to be healed, so that each and every one of us can look at what we've done and say we're not going back there. And so that's the real power that's going to set us free from our limiting beliefs and patterns, is if we can release attachment to the past. I'm not saying that people who did negative things should go that they should just get away with it. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying don't cycle in it. Don't keep your energy in the negative judgment and hate, because you're just pulling yourself down. The treaty also is about recognizing the oneness. We talked about it's the first treaty that recognizes nation states, indigenous nations, and cosmic cultures, which are extraterrestrials. They're alien beings, but they're part of a galactic family. And this, when we sign that treaty, when we make the donation, that is our free will choice to end separation, which is the root cause of all pain and suffering on the planet. It's exercising our free will. It's saying, yes, I choose to have peace on earth, and that allows our galactic family, who you said will not come, without, they're not going to go against our will. That's an invitation for them to come and to connect with us and to share their advanced technology that will help to heal us and our planet. It's honoring people and natural systems that we all depend on for life without the use of hydrocarbons. No more oil, no more gas, no more, fracking the earth for natural gas to have, energy. And so in my view, the Outer Space Security and Development Treaty of 2012 is calling this tract of humanity into oneness. It's calling us into peace and to harmony, which raises our vibration individually, which impacts everyone because we all live in this sea of one energy, one light, high enough for our Earth to be able to make that journey into the higher dimensions, and for us to go with her, and for us to have that experience with most ease, because what's happening out there, the plans for humanity I believe it's because the FEMA camps, whatever it is you want to look at, it's all there for us to break through the fear, to have the courage to say, I'm choosing a new earth, I'm choosing love, I'm choosing peace, I'm choosing harmony. And I believe this treaty is our ticket out. Our ticket out of the miasma, the pain, the suffering that we all contributed to, we all own it, and I believe this treaty is our way to move beyond. And I think you've said that too in what you said earlier tonight. So, Carol, I'm going to ask you now, people are under a lot of pressure right now. The human atrocities that are going on in Syria, the debt crisis, the rising police state in Canada and the U.S. So when we look at the treaty, how confident are you that this treaty is going to be able to solve the biggest challenges that are facing us right now? And, do you feel the sense of urgency around that?
Well, there is another thing that the extraterrestrial being said to me. There are no guarantees due to the human ego. But the ego is the mind. So it's really up to us to tap into everything that you just said and take this tool that we've been given and get it passed into law. And when you get that passed into law, it's written by people who have worked in the belly of the beast, who know how to transform it. If there's anything that is going to work, this is the only thing that I can come up with, that any of us have come up with, and many other people that are saying this is it. There is nothing else out there. There's not going to be anything else out there. The timing is perfect. Everything and everyone is in place to make this happen. And now all we need to do is get the law passed, and it's verifiable because now we know when 1967, when the Outer Space Treaty was passed into law, it was only about 2 countries, Russia and the U.S., and then that's all there was. And now almost every country in the world is in some way related to space technology. That's how we communicate, and that's how we observe the Earth, and that's how we learn that we can, where the problems are. And as Jacques Cousteau used to say, without satellites, we couldn't clear up the oceans. We couldn't see where and what's happening to them. And we see what's happening with climate change and all of the things that you mentioned. Well, yes, the answer to the question is yes, this will absolutely 100% work. All we have to do is sign the treaty. Now, when I say 100%, I know nothing works 100%. But my vision, the vision of these men that co-authored it, the vision that people in the military-industrial complex have, most people in the military really just want to be in service or get an education. Most people in the aerospace industry and the military-related industries, of which I mentioned there are hundreds, those people are exciting people. They have vision that I wish I had a list of spin-offs. I mean, I was watching the Olympics the other night, and I was watching the people with limbs that have been created from space-age technology that were born without them for one reason or others. I could go into all the different lists of spin-offs and benefits that we'll get from space-age technology and information that we've got to get applied to solving the problems on the planet that are of all the list of human needs, of the environment, of energy, and more. And we have a chance to do that now, and this is our chance. And if we all go for this together, this is it. We're not going to get another chance. This is the most serious moment in all of history. Let us not dare let them put these space-based weapons up there. And anyone that says they're already there, there is no evidence of that. But even if they were, this treaty would verifiably ban them, because now with all these countries, all this technology, we all know everything that's going on in space. You can't hide it, can't keep secrets. It's all out there, transparent in what's going on in outer space now. If we let this go further, it won't be. And enforcement, I want to mention too, because that's usually the next question after the person who asked about that, the last question. How do you enforce it when countries may or may not, like the United States, pay attention to world law? Let me tell you, there are plenty of ways to approach the United States or any other country that wants to put space-based weapons up there when the law happens and the rest of the world joins in. And I was told by people at the United Nations to answer finally that once we get the first countries signed on, that the most of the countries of the world will sign right on to this treaty. They do not want space-based weapons. They do not want to be dominated and controlled. They do want their money and their brains applied to the urgent problems in the many man-made boundaries, the countries of the world. And this, whatever is happening in the world is affecting all of us now. Take radiation, for example. Do you think there's a boundary to that? This is disastrous what's going on, and we have the technology available to us. We do not have a choice. Either we get this done or we don't. And if we don't, the consequences are too unspeakable to even go into, and I don't want to go there like you. What I do want to do is get this done because we can, and we have a moment in time, and those of us who feel that sense of responsibility, who do not get distracted by the negative crap that's out there and the people who are spreading it, who may have good intentions, or they may just want to be selling their books and tapes and, self-promote, or they may have corporate interests or fear-based interests. That's all okay, but keep moving. There's a marketing term, some will, some won't. So what? Next. Get us together with the people who get this, and let's get this signed into law as fast as we can. And then these industry people are not nuts. They're not stupid. They want to keep going. They want jobs to be created. They want new technologies. Look at these young entrepreneurs, the SpaceX that just linked up their spacecraft with the space station. Look at Branson and these people that have their craft in their hotels that they're building. And we're going to be able to be visiting them. People have put down their first $20,000 to go travel into space just to have the experience in zero gravity. This is a human condition for the people that can afford it. And, yeah, most of us can't, and most of the world is suffering. And we've got to take care of those people and those children. How dare us allow there to be 500 million children suffering on the planet and animals all disappearing and coming up and washing on the shores and homes burning down and floods and all the things that are happening. How dare us let that happen? No, we don't need to, but we have to get out of the box of the protests, the negatives, even what I just said, and stop focusing on them. If everybody put all that energy into getting this treaty signed, if you will just go read it, it's a story. It's not just a treaty that's that boring document that we know about. You will see that it talks about, it reminds you of the harmony of the indigenous people, to how to live in nature, and it reminds you of what we're going to learn from the cosmos cultures that are real. So thank you. Yes, we can make this happen, and we will. That's why we're doing it, and we're laying everything we've got on the line, and please participate with us if you hear this, because this is our chance. It is now or never, and that's it. And we're going to have a great time doing it. And the celebration of the world when we fill out the airways with all the solutions that we all have pieces of from our hearts and from the technologies and information that we have, that then will explode in the good way in our energy grids. That's when we will start to pay attention to the environment and all the human needs that we can then take care of. So we have this chance now, and yes, of course it's going to work. We would not be putting our time into this. We're too old and tired. We're ready to get this done.
For me, it is an exciting time to be alive, and I just really want to emphasize how important it is for each of us to make the choice, to choose peace and harmony and unity. Because the other side of that is too ugly to go into. And I was going to mention earlier, I'd like to offer this website to our listeners. It's EHTRUST.org, and it's to prevent cell phone radiation dangers. The jury's out. I mean, cell phones are very dangerous, and if you go to that website, EHTRUST.org, it'll tell you how to prevent the damage from your phone. I just wanted to mention just before the show, I got an email. It was a blog, and it had a message from the movie The Lorax, Dr. Seuss's movie The Lorax, and it is just so appropriate for this time, and it reads like this: unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. Dr. Seuss. And I think that's what we're saying here. And I don't want to rush to close the show, Carol. It says, we have about 5 minutes left. So, one of the things I wanted, how long do you think it will take in order to get all of these 9 signatures?
Oh, I really don't know. What I do know is we're all packing and ready to go now. And nice. How long does it take for us to go? All of us are in this country. One's in Washington State, one's in Texas, 2 are in Florida, I'm in Oregon, one's in the UK. The documentarians are here too in Oregon. We're ready to go. And you know how long it takes to book the tickets, get on the planes, get the appointments with world leaders, and just start the ball rolling. I'm an official advisor to China. I have been for years, so we're going to go there, to Russia, and to other countries we won't mention so that we don't get blocked. But the people who are participating, of course, will be reporting back to, excuse me, and just as quickly as we can. We hope we can get this signed and ratified in 2012. That's what we're going for. We all know this is a year for shift and for change, and without this, it's just a lot more rhetoric that I keep hearing, a lot of good projects that are going on that we don't want to stop doing. We need to work on everything simultaneously. But what I do know is if we keep doing it in the old ways, it's not going to change. And if we start with this new treaty that's based on the old one, but with the new information in it that's just so amazing, we have a chance of allowing an Aikido style, you know, moving the energy and letting it keep flowing naturally to change the whole mindset and the war industry, which to me is where the culprit is. And it relates to a lot of different, as I said, belief systems and so on, and the economy and the fear-based security system. But we have this document now, and we have the credentialed people standing for it, and we have all of your listeners, and we're those people. We're the people that can do whatever we can to spread the word and get the donations in. And let's start with $100,000. If somebody can write that check, we can start on the road. If somebody writes a check for $50,000, we can start. But we've got to get, it's very expensive to travel these days, and we want to do it safely, and we want to get to places where we know that we're going to feel comfortable in walking into those world leader offices. Imagine that happening. That's what we're actually creating the reality to, and as very quickly as we can is what we're going to do. We have no time to waste. If you know the plans of the escalation of the weaponization of space, of the earthbound weapons and that mentality into space, you know we better do this fast. Because if it does happen on that scale we're talking about, that we all know from the industry is going to happen if we don't do this, then we don't have a minute to waste. And like I said, my thing is, I used to be all in. Now I really want to work with the people who want to help get this done.
See, for me, I'm looking at it from the perspective that life won't be worth living. That's how serious this is.
For sure. It's almost not for a lot of people right now.
Yes, that's true. And Carol, the other thing I'd like to ask is, you know, for people who listen to the show, to hold the vision of the money being delivered. I don't know, see, you know, $100 bills raining down on Carol's house, or, you know, it's like just see the money, somebody delivering her a package to the door, and it's got, you know, all the money you need, and just hold that vision, energize it. This is see, the thing for me is that the time now is about our body, mind, spirit becoming one. So we have the non-physical part of us, which is light, which is the power, and we have our physical body. And so we can do the things like hold this show and donate, but also there's the physical part. See, 97% of this happening is going to come from within. The outer part of what we do in the physical is not the power part, but it's the free will. And it's the free will that liberates the power to make it happen. So if we hold the vision and we have, you know, we see it happening, and we see, I prefer to see, you know, peace. You say war is over. That's okay. You know, and I like to see world peace, you know, and flowers and, you know, hearts around it. And so whatever your vision is of us, you know, victoriously evolving ourselves and our planet and becoming one and in harmony and peace, you know, hold that vision or hold your own vision. So Carol, I'm gonna wrap up now because I don't like rushing at the last minute. I'm so grateful to you for being with us, for sharing, for, you know, helping us to expand our awareness and inviting us to participate. You know, this is for all of us. This is like the whole human family. And so I don't know if there's any one or two last things. We just have a few minutes. Is there anything else? Is there anything we missed? Is there anything you'd like to add?
I just want to thank everybody so much for what you've done, what in your lives, what you're going to be doing, and for helping with this, because this is the pivotal moment in time. You know, I helped start a movement with what I'm told was 50 million people, and I debated generals on the Larry King show. I mean, I did this road tour debate talking about why space-based weapons were a dumb, dangerous, destabilizing, too costly, unnecessary, untestable, unworkable idea. And I almost never had time to say what the alternative was. And this is the time now where the alternatives are available to us. The unlimited benefits and opportunities for all of us come out of this. For all the world, human family comes out of this. And so, yes, the vision of world peace, the imagined song, what it will be like, and what it is like in our minds, that vision to me is the most powerful vision all of us can have. And bring in the musicians and artists. We have musicians that are sending us music I can share with you if any of you are interested. And these are the times when we have all the ways that we can present this new vision. Bring in the children. I just did a children's show with Natalie Marie in Canada, and the children are ready. And the ones who are able to do things, have them create the visions with you. As an educator, I know that the vision is in these magical children, and all children are magical. So this is a time for all of us to unite, to be that family that some of us feel like we're missing and some of us are likely to have. And think about the people who don't have them anymore because of what's happened to them. And let's put them also in that light, because they're desperate for healing, like my friend in Japan who sent me a note about this is the very day of Nagasaki, that the bomb, and what happened to them, and how the Japanese are now relating to it in an old paradigm, some of them, and others are just like us, seeing that there is another possibility. We must work as hard as we ever have, but we have now a tool. And
Carol, we stopped streaming.
This is the gift, the treaty.
Thank you. We're going to have to close because it stopped streaming, so whatever we say now won't be recorded. But I just want to thank you again from the bottom of my heart for everything that you do, that you have done, that you continue to do. I want to thank everyone in the chat room. They were very participatory tonight, and so I want to thank you for your comments. Please forward our show. Click those social icon buttons. Put it all over Facebook. Put it all over Twitter. If you belong to a Facebook group, or if you see other groups that are connected to peace and, a better world, a new earth, put the link to peaceinspace.com or put the link to peace-treaty.com and start putting it out there. If you know people that blog, put the links there. If you go on YouTube, put the links. You have to space them because YouTube won't let you put in a live link. But there are ways that we can just really raise the profile of what's in front of us right now, and then also to make your donations and to encourage other people to donate as well. So, Carol, thank you so much, and I continue to looking forward to working with you very closely to make this thing happen and to make it happen as soon as possible.
Thank you so much, Doreen. You're an angel, and I so look forward to hearing from everybody that wants to write. I answer every single email, and I look forward to hearing your vision, too, and what you think we can do, and any support that you can give us, because that's all we need right now. We're ready to go. Thank you so much. Awesome. It's really an exciting time in the middle of all this misery.
It is, absolutely. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll be in touch soon, Carol. Good night. Good night, everyone. Thank you. Bye.